Have you ever wondered why the people with the deepest hearts are often the hardest to find? In a world where everyone is encouraged to be seen, some souls choose to disappear, not because they have nothing to offer, but because they understand something most people never do. Not every part of your life is meant to become public. The loudest voices often seek attention, while the strongest spirits quietly protect their peace. Today, let us explore why many empaths naturally step away from social media and what this reveals about the human mind. There is a quiet misunderstanding in our world today. Many people believe that if someone is rarely seen online, it must mean they have nothing to share, nothing to celebrate, or nothing worth noticing. But this assumption reveals more about our culture than it does about the person who remains silent. We have become accustomed to measuring presence by visibility, as though a life only has value when it is displayed. Yet the deepest rivers make the least noise, and the strongest roots grow where no one can see them. If you are an empath, your inner world is not a small place. It is vast, constantly moving, constantly receiving. You do not simply observe emotions. You often experience them as though they have entered your own heart. You walk into a room and immediately notice tension before anyone speaks. You hear a person's laughter, yet you can sense the sadness hidden underneath it. This sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a remarkable ability, but it also comes with a responsibility. If you leave the doors of your mind open all the time, eventually everything outside begins to live inside you. This is why many empaths naturally become careful about how much of themselves they expose to the world. They understand, even if they cannot explain it, that every interaction carries energy. Every comment, every opinion, every judgment leaves a small impression. Most people can scroll through hundreds of reactions without thinking twice. An empath often carries those reactions long after the screen has gone dark. A careless remark may echo in their thoughts for days. A stranger's anger can quietly disturb their peace. They do not choose this response. It simply happens because their nervous system is tuned to notice what others overlook. Psychology gives us a helpful way to understand this. People who are highly emotionally sensitive process social information more deeply. Their brains spend more time reflecting, evaluating, and integrating emotional experiences. What feels like a brief exchange for one person may become hours of quiet reflection for another. This is not because the empath is fragile. It is because their awareness is more receptive. And what is receptive must also be protected. Think of a beautiful garden. If the gate remains open day and night, anyone can enter. Some visitors admire the flowers. Others leave footprints. Some unknowingly damage what took years to grow. Eventually, the gardener realizes that protecting the garden is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of love. Without healthy boundaries, even the richest soil becomes exhausted. Social media often encourages the opposite. It whispers that you should reveal more, post more, respond more, remain constantly available. It rewards exposure with attention, and attention can become addictive. But empaths often notice something that others miss. The more they seek approval outside themselves, the quieter their own inner voice becomes. They begin asking what others want instead of listening to what their own spirit needs. Slowly, they feel disconnected, not because they are alone, but because they have wandered too far from themselves. So they step back, not to reject the world, not because they believe they are better than anyone else, but because they understand that peace is easier to lose than it is to rebuild. They know that protecting their emotional energy allows them to remain kind without becoming exhausted, compassionate without becoming consumed, and open-hearted without forgetting who they truly are. The strongest presence is often the one that never needs to announce itself. Once you begin protecting your inner world, something else becomes clear. You start to notice that it is not only your own thoughts that shape your peace. It is also the invisible atmosphere you allow yourself to enter each day. This is where many empaths quietly make a different choice from the rest of the world. Most people open social media expecting entertainment, information, or connection. An empath often enters with the same intention, but leaves carrying something much heavier. A few minutes of scrolling can become an emotional journey through fear, anger, celebration, grief, comparison, and conflict. None of these emotions belong to them, yet somehow they settle inside them. It is as though they walk through a crowded marketplace, where every person is shouting a different emotion, and instead of hearing the noise, they absorb it. Have you ever noticed that after spending time online, you feel strangely tired, even though your body has done nothing? You cannot explain it. You have been sitting still, yet your mind feels crowded. Your heart feels heavier. This is not always caused by the amount of information you consumed. Sometimes it is caused by the emotional weight hidden inside that information. Psychologists speak about something called emotional contagion. Human beings naturally reflect the emotional states of those around them. We mirror expressions, absorb moods, and unconsciously synchronize with the emotional environment. This happens in conversations, in families, in workplaces, and surprisingly, it also happens through screens. Even without physical contact, repeated exposure to emotional content influences how we think and how we feel. For an empath, this process often becomes stronger because their attention naturally rests on emotional cues. They notice pain hidden between words. They sense frustration beneath a smiling photograph. They recognize loneliness behind constant posting. While others scroll quickly past these signals, the empath pauses. They wonder if the person is truly okay. They imagine what someone else might be carrying. Their compassion begins working before their logical mind has a chance to step in. This is beautiful, but it is also exhausting. Imagine standing in the rain all day without an umbrella. At first, the drops feel refreshing, but hour after hour, they soak into your clothes until even standing becomes difficult. Emotional energy works in much the same way. One difficult story may inspire compassion. Hundreds of emotional stories, arguments, tragedies, and opinions, flowing endlessly into your awareness, begin to weigh upon the nervous system. Eventually, you no longer know which feelings are yours and which ones you collected from everyone else. This is why many empaths become comfortable with silence. Not because silence is empty, but because silence allows the mind to settle. In stillness, borrowed emotions slowly fall away. The nervous system remembers what calm feels like. The heart no longer reacts to every notification or every opinion thrown into the endless stream of digital conversation. There is another subtle danger. Social media often rewards outrage more than wisdom. Strong reactions spread faster than quiet understanding. Anger attracts attention. Conflict creates engagement. Fear keeps people watching. An empath recognizes this pattern, sometimes without even consciously thinking about it. After enough exposure, they begin asking themselves a simple question. If I continue feeding my mind this environment every day, who will I become? That question changes everything, because your mind becomes shaped by what it repeatedly experiences. If you constantly surround yourself with emotional chaos, chaos slowly begins to feel normal. If you repeatedly expose yourself to comparison, dissatisfaction quietly grows. If you spend every day absorbing other people's unresolved emotions, eventually your own inner voice becomes difficult to hear. So the empath does not disappear because they fear people. They simply understand that every environment leaves its mark. Just as you would not drink from every river, you should not allow every emotion to enter your heart. Peace begins the moment you become selective about the energy you welcome into your life. After creating distance from emotional noise, something remarkable begins to happen. You start hearing a quieter voice that had been buried beneath the constant movement of the world. It is your own. For many empaths, this is one of the greatest reasons they do not feel compelled to remain highly visible on social media. They are not trying to disappear. They are trying to remain authentic. We live in a time where people are often encouraged to build an image before they build themselves. There is subtle pressure to present a life that looks successful, exciting, peaceful, or extraordinary. Every photograph can be adjusted. Every sentence can be rewritten. Every moment can be arranged to create a certain impression. Little by little, it becomes easy to confuse being seen with being known. An empath feels this tension deeply. When they post something joyful, they may wonder if it appears as though they are seeking approval. When they remain silent, others assume they have nothing happening in their lives. When they share something personal, they often feel exposed in ways they never expected. There is an inner conflict that many people never notice. They do not simply ask, "Will people like this?" They ask, "Does this truly represent who I am?" That question carries great weight. Psychology tells us that human beings naturally engage in what is called impression management. We adjust our behavior depending on who is watching. This is not always dishonest. It is simply part of social life. We speak differently with family than we do at work. We present different parts of ourselves in different situations. But when this becomes constant, especially in digital spaces where audiences never seem to disappear, something begins to happen. We slowly lose touch with the difference between the person we are and the person we perform. The empath often notices this before others do. They begin to feel uncomfortable when sharing moments that are still unfolding. A beautiful sunrise no longer feels like a peaceful experience if the first thought is capturing the perfect picture. A meaningful conversation loses some of its depth when part of the mind is already thinking about how to describe it later. Even an act of kindness can become strangely empty if it is performed with the expectation that it will be witnessed and applauded. Life starts becoming a performance instead of an experience. This is why many empaths quietly choose another path. They allow moments to belong only to the people who were present. They treasure memories that exist without photographs. They celebrate victories that no one else ever hears about. They cry without announcing it. They heal without documenting every stage. They understand that some of the most sacred transformations happen in silence, where no audience can interrupt the conversation between the heart and the soul. There is also a freedom that comes with not needing to explain yourself. When you stop trying to convince others that your life has meaning, you begin living it more fully. You no longer calculate every decision based on how it will appear. You choose relationships because they nourish your spirit, not because they create beautiful images. You pursue growth because it changes you, not because it impresses someone else. Authenticity requires courage, because it often looks ordinary from the outside. It means allowing yourself to be misunderstood without rushing to defend your image. It means accepting that not everyone will know your story, your struggles, or your intentions. Yet there is peace in this. The tree does not stop growing because no one is watching. The mountain does not seek applause for standing tall. Nature teaches us that what is real does not need constant recognition. When you become less concerned with creating an identity for the world, you finally have enough energy to discover your true identity within yourself. And the person who knows themselves no longer feels the need to constantly prove who they are. When you stop trying to prove who you are, another transformation quietly begins. You discover that silence is not merely the absence of noise. It becomes a place where your true identity can breathe. This is something many empaths understand through experience rather than theory. They do not withdraw from constant attention because they dislike people. They withdraw because they know that if they spend too much time listening to everyone else, they will eventually stop recognizing themselves. There is a subtle danger that comes with living under the eyes of others. Every opinion becomes a mirror. Every compliment feels rewarding. Every criticism feels personal. At first, this may seem harmless, but over time, you begin making choices based not on your own values, but on the reactions you expect to receive. Without realizing it, your identity slowly shifts from the inside to the outside. The human mind is deeply influenced by feedback. Psychology has shown that repeated approval strengthens certain behaviors, while repeated criticism discourages them. This is useful in many parts of life. But when your entire sense of self begins depending on external responses, You become vulnerable to every passing opinion. Your confidence rises and falls with numbers on a screen. Your mood changes with comments from strangers who know almost nothing about your life. For an empath, this influence often reaches even deeper. Because they naturally care about how others feel, they also become more aware of how others perceive them. A harsh comment may linger in their thoughts for days. A misunderstanding can replay in their mind long after everyone else has forgotten it. They do not simply hear words. They search for meaning behind them. They wonder if they unintentionally caused pain. They reflect on every interaction, hoping to understand rather than to win. While this quality makes them compassionate, it also means they must be careful. If they expose themselves to endless judgment, they slowly begin carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. This is why silence becomes more than a preference. It becomes a form of protection. Imagine standing beside a lake on a windy day. The surface is restless. Waves move in every direction, and no reflection is visible. But as the wind settles, the water becomes still. Suddenly, it reflects the sky with perfect clarity. Your mind works the same way. If it is constantly disturbed by opinions, comparisons, expectations, and endless stimulation, it cannot clearly reflect who you truly are. Many people fear being alone because they mistake solitude for loneliness. But they are not the same. Loneliness is feeling disconnected, even when surrounded by people. Solitude is choosing space so that you can reconnect with yourself. Empaths often discover that some of their greatest insights arrive when no one is speaking to them. In quiet moments, they remember what genuinely matters. They remember the dreams they almost abandoned because they seemed unpopular. They remember the values that guided them before the world told them what success should look like. In these moments, they stop asking, "How am I being perceived?" and begin asking, "Who am I becoming?" That single question changes the direction of a life, because identity is not something you build through applause. It is something you uncover through honest observation. It grows each time you choose integrity over approval, peace over attention, and truth over performance. The world may never notice these victories, but they are the ones that shape your character. There is immense strength in becoming someone who no longer needs constant reassurance. Not because you have become cold or indifferent, but because your roots have grown deeper than public opinion. You learn that not every misunderstanding must be corrected. Not every criticism deserves your energy. Not every invitation to explain yourself must be accepted. The quieter you become within, the harder it is for the outside world to define who you are. And when your identity is rooted in inner clarity instead of outer approval, no amount of noise can take your peace away. Once your identity is no longer dependent on being noticed, you begin to experience life in a completely different way. You realize that there is a profound difference between living a moment and displaying a moment. Many people have become so accustomed to documenting their experiences that they rarely pause to fully inhabit them. The empath often senses this difference instinctively. They understand that some moments lose their depth the instant they become performances for an in-depth audience. Think about the last time you witnessed a beautiful sunset. The sky was changing every second, painting colors that no artist could fully capture. Yet how often does the mind immediately reach for a phone instead of remaining present? Before the heart has time to absorb the beauty, the attention shifts toward angles, lighting, captions, and reactions. The experience is interrupted by the desire to preserve it, and sometimes, in trying to save the moment, we stop truly living it. Empaths naturally resist this pattern, not because they reject technology or believe that sharing memories is wrong, but because they know that presence is one of the greatest gifts a human being can offer. When they sit with a friend who is hurting, they are not thinking about telling the world how compassionate they are. They are listening. When they walk through a forest, they are not searching for proof that they were there. They are noticing the movement of the leaves, the scent of the earth, the sound of birds hidden among the trees. Their attention belongs to life itself, not to the image of life. Psychology supports this way of living. Researchers have found that mindfulness, the ability to remain fully aware of the present moment, is closely connected to emotional well-being. When attention is anchored in what is happening now, the mind becomes less consumed by comparison, anxiety, and constant evaluation. Instead of asking whether an experience is impressive enough to share, you begin asking whether you are truly experiencing it. This simple shift changes the quality of your life. Many people believe fulfillment comes from collecting extraordinary moments, but fulfillment rarely arrives through accumulation. It grows through attention. A simple conversation can become unforgettable when you are fully present. A quiet morning can nourish the spirit more deeply than a crowded celebration. A walk beneath the open sky can teach lessons that no screen ever could. The empath understands this because their heart responds to depth, not spectacle. This is also why they often keep the most meaningful parts of their lives private. The greatest acts of love are not always announced. The deepest prayers are rarely spoken aloud. The most important decisions are often made in silence, long before anyone else sees their results. There is a certain sacredness in allowing experiences to exist without turning them into public possessions. The modern world often confuses visibility with significance. It suggests that if something is not shared, it somehow did not matter. But ask yourself this: did the flower bloom only because someone photographed it? Does the ocean lose its beauty because no one posts about it? Does kindness become less valuable when no one applauds it? Nature reminds us that what is genuine does not depend on witnesses. Its value exists independently of recognition. The empath carries this understanding into everyday life. They would rather have one sincere conversation than 1,000 shallow interactions. They would rather remember how a moment felt than how it appeared. They would rather invest their energy in relationships that grow quietly than in an audience that disappears with the next passing trend. There is a freedom that comes when you stop measuring your life by what can be shown. You begin noticing details that others rush past. You hear laughter more clearly. You appreciate silence more deeply. Gratitude arrives more naturally because your attention is no longer divided between the experience and the performance of the experience. Life was never asking you to become its narrator. It was inviting you to become its participant. The richest moments are the ones your heart remembers, even when the world never sees them. As you begin to understand all of this, a quiet truth starts revealing itself. The world has taught many people that influence comes from being seen everywhere, speaking constantly, and remaining impossible to ignore. But true influence has never depended on volume. It has always depended on presence. There is a great difference between attracting attention and leaving an impression. Attention is often immediate and temporary. Presence is silent, yet it stays with people long after the moment has passed. This is why many empaths are misunderstood. Their absence from social media is sometimes mistaken for insecurity, isolation, or a lack of confidence. But in many cases, the opposite is true. They have simply reached a place where they no longer need to announce every thought, every achievement, or every emotion to feel that it is real. They understand that a meaningful life is not measured by how many people witness it, but by how deeply it is lived. There is a lesson we can learn from nature. The tallest mountains do not advertise their strength. The oldest trees do not compete for attention. The sun rises every morning without asking for applause. Everything that is truly powerful fulfills its purpose quietly and consistently. Human beings often forget this because we have become fascinated with constant visibility. Yet the deepest transformations rarely happen under bright lights. They happen in moments of solitude, reflection, discipline, and honest self-examination. Psychology reminds us that lasting well-being is closely connected to intrinsic motivation, the ability to act from inner values rather than external rewards. When your actions are guided by likes, praise, recognition, or approval, your emotional state becomes dependent on circumstances you cannot control. But when your actions arise from compassion, integrity, curiosity, or purpose, you become far more stable. You are no longer chasing validation because your direction comes from within. This is one of the greatest strengths of the empath. They naturally seek meaning before recognition. They ask themselves whether something is kind before asking whether it is popular. They wonder whether their words will help someone before wondering how many people will agree. This does not mean they are perfect. It simply means their heart is trained to look beyond appearances. Of course, there are times when sharing your voice is important. The world needs wisdom. It needs compassion. It needs people who are willing to encourage others. Choosing privacy does not mean hiding your gifts. It means becoming intentional about where and how you offer them. An empath understands that energy is valuable. If it is scattered everywhere, it loses its power. But when it is directed with care, even a few sincere words can change someone's life. Perhaps this is the greatest misunderstanding of all. People often believe that protecting your peace means withdrawing from the world. It does not. It means entering the world without allowing it to consume you. It means helping others without forgetting yourself. It means listening deeply without carrying every burden. It means remaining compassionate while also remaining rooted. Imagine a candle in a dark room. It does not chase the darkness. It simply burns steadily where it stands. Because it protects its own flame, it is able to give light to others. If the flame is neglected, there is nothing left to offer. In the same way, your peace is not something to sacrifice in order to appear available to everyone. It is the very foundation that allows your kindness, your wisdom, and your love to endure. So if you have ever wondered whether there is something wrong with you because you prefer a quieter path, perhaps the answer is simpler than you imagined. Perhaps your soul understands something that this fast-moving world often forgets. Not everything precious demands attention. Not everything meaningful asks to be displayed. Some of the strongest people are quietly becoming who they are meant to be while no one is watching. Protect your peace, honor your presence, and let your life speak louder than your visibility.